Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll receive insight, inspiration, and advice for living your purpose and making an impact as a conscious leader. You'll also hear inspirational stories of other conscious leaders who are living and leading from a place of mission, vision, and purpose. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with me, your host, Jennifer Spore. It is my absolute joy to welcome back as a guest to the show today, Eloise Gagnon. She is a leadership coach and business mentor to women entrepreneurs. For over 15 years, she's worked as an international corporate lawyer alongside entrepreneurs and executives from around the world, mainly in Europe and the Middle East, developing her expertise in leadership while being on a personal quest to lead a purposeful and impactful life. She's now on a mission to end entrepreneurial suffering by helping high-achieving female entrepreneurs expand their potential and become decisive, vision-driven, and impactful leaders. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be back.
It's great to have you back. I just adore you. So for those who may not have had the chance to listen to our first interview, tell us more about what inspired you to do what you're doing today.
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. And it's crazy because it's a question that I don't think I actually dived into until maybe really recently. I think when I decided to become a leadership coach, I just wanted to help other people. I just wanted to help all of the people do all of the things, right?
Yes.
And I think that's ingrained in me from like my upbringing, right? Like very Catholic religious upbringing. And I just wanted to serve others and help others. But I think more recently, I really dived into what is it that I really want to help others do? And why is that so important to me? And I've been asking myself that question a lot. And what I've realized is that throughout my entire entrepreneurial journey, I was mentored. I was lucky enough to be mentored by these amazing men that had been very highly successful. But they mentored me like one of them, right? And I realized that I was seeing all these other women entrepreneurs not being able to reach the same milestones I was reaching. And I was like, why is that? And I realized that I had no woman mentor to show me the ropes. And that's when I realized how important and passionate I was about helping other women step up as leaders, as CEO of their business, and have such a tremendous impact on their lives, their families, their community through their business. Because I find that when you help somebody level up to be a CEO and a leader, the ripple effect that you get from that is absolutely astounding. When you have better leaders and better CEOs, you have better employees. When the employees feel better, they go home, their partners feel better. When the partners feel better, the kids feel better, the dog is happier. You know what I mean? Like the ripple effect is just outstanding. And to me, in my life, where I'm at right now, it's really that ripple effect that I'm looking for.
I love that. Me too. We're in the same club.
Yeah, that's why we get along so well.
Yes. Which is a great segue into the next topic I want to touch on, conscious leadership, which I feel it's interesting because I shared a post on social media recently and someone had commented, it was about the meaning of conscious leadership, and they commented saying that there is no difference between conscious leadership and leadership, which I feel there is a significant difference. You know, one could view a traditional leader as someone who makes strategic decisions, right? I feel like up until recent years, and we still have a lot of work to do, we've left the most important part of leadership out, and that's the people part, right? Which is what I view as conscious leadership. And especially with the shift in consciousness that I'm guessing everyone can see that's happening at this point, you know, on the planet, and the uncharted times that we're in, that as a leader, being able to lead yourself and then lead others forward from a place of mission, vision, and purpose. Yeah. That's what I believe the now and the future of leadership is. So that being said, I would love to get your thoughts on what conscious leadership means to you.
I find it so amazing the way you brought that topic up, because to me, there's the old school way of leading, which is very what I call commanding or transactional leadership, right?
Yes, transactional.
And when I studied leaders from like history, when you look at Winston Churchill and just like phenomenal leaders, you realize that they weren't just transactional leaders. They weren't just commanding leader. To me, a transactional leader is somebody that exclusively takes strategic decisions, that thinks that they have reached the best decision and imposes that decision on their followers. To me, that's a leader of follower. It is not a leader of leaders. When I look at conscious leadership, I look at a leader that wants to build other leaders. And to me, that's a type of leader that everyone should want to be. You don't want to just have followers. You want to enable other people to be leaders themselves. So to lead from consciousness is to lead from within, with integrity and with authenticity. And I think it's becoming more and more popular. And I look at the next generation, like I look at my nephews and I see that they are no longer willing to blindly follow someone just because somebody is giving them orders or telling them what to do. They want there to be a higher standard to which they hold that person. And when I hear them talk, and just when I'm coaching, I notice that people will demand that their leaders have the same self-leadership as they're asking others. For example, if I'm asking you to be on time to a meeting, then I have to show up on time.
Yes, yes.
If I'm asking you to own up to your mistakes, then I have to own up to my mistakes.
Yes.
And I think that's where leading from consciousness comes from. It's being so centered in who you are and allowing others to be who they are and lead from there. I think the challenge with conscious leadership is that a lot of people don't know who they are.
Yes, so there's a process of rediscovery, right? And I say rediscovery because there's change happening on that journey, right? But it's really not about the person changing. It's more about them peeling back the layers to remember who they really are, who they've always been.
That's it. And I always say I'm very privileged. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old boys. And I look at how they are now and their essence and how they play, how they interact with each other. And it is so pure. It is so innocent. And it brings me back to when I was a kid, how I interacted with people, how I was. Yes. And I find that those core values bring me back to the essence of who I am.
Yes. And our values are very much a part of, who we are. And it would be natural for them to be reflected through our careers and our businesses as well. That goes back to that old school kind of patriarchal system of, here's the cookie cutter way of the work that you need to do and how you need to do it and how you need to be successful. I feel like that way left the person out of it, the values, the spirituality, the beliefs. I feel like when you seek to encourage others to align with that, with their values and all of the other good stuff I mentioned, then success is inevitable.
I do strongly believe that. And I also strongly believe that there is a balance to be had. I believe that you have to center yourself in authenticity and integrity, and you have to keep your mission and your vision and your values at the core of your leadership. And at the same time, and this is like the dichotomy of leadership, this is why it's so hard to be a leader, is that at the same time that you are aligned and authentic, you have to be a strategic leader. You have to make hard decisions. You still have to lead. And I think that that's what's so hard, is that people fall into too much of just strategy and just strategic leadership and transactional. And some others are simply blinded by mission, and the mission takes over where they're no longer leading. They're letting that completely take over. And I think that that's where leadership is so difficult, is that you have to strike a balance between both.
I've been using the term practical magic a lot. I think I even mentioned it to you maybe earlier in our conversation, but that's what I think of when I listen to what you're describing just now. It's a balance of everything, all of it.
Yeah. And I think that's for some people, I truly believe that, first of all, leaders are made, they're not born. You may have a 1% innate talent that allows you to be an extraordinary leader, but every leader is made. And I think a lot of people shy away from leadership because it forces you to analyze that balance. It forces you to live within those two extremities. It forces you to find your own voice and speak it out loud. It forces you to be vulnerable. It forces you to be open. Because when you're a leader, it's up to you to own up to everything that happens. And I talk a lot about ownership because to me, that is the core of leadership. If you didn't do your job properly, it's not your fault. It's because I didn't explain to you the job that you needed to do. I didn't explain to you maybe why your job was so important. I didn't explain to you the central part that you are playing within a team.
Yeah, that's so spot on, because people, and this from my corporate background too, people want to do a good job.
They do.
Yeah, it's really the onus is on the leader to communicate effectively, but to also identify that there are different ways that people receive communication, and there are different ways that people learn. And so I feel like it's also the leader's responsibility to recognize those differences in each of their employees and to not treat them as cookie cutter.
Absolutely. And to me, a leader is not just the person in the corner office. To me, a leader, I have met exceptional assistants that are leaders. I have met exceptional employees that you would think like they're not a manager, they're not a boss, but they are tremendous leaders because they motivate their team. They do the best that they can at their job. They show others what's possible in their job. They're always a step ahead of their own boss or their own manager and a step of their other teammates, but they bring the whole team with them. It's not I'm a step ahead, but look at me, I'm so great. It's I'm a step ahead and I'm going to bring everybody with me in that step forward. And what I've noticed about those people is that they take extreme ownership of what they have control over. They're like, you're going to give me this little piece of pie and that's it. Well, that's fine because I'm going to take such good care of this little piece of pie that is going to turn into an entire pie.
Yeah.
And I think that that's phenomenal. And I think a leader's job is to recognize that in their employees, to recognize that, oh my God, I have another leader on my hand. I'm going to nurture that leadership within that person.
And prior to that, right, those are all qualities that they have to recognize in themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You can't see in others what you don't see in yourself first. And I see a lot of people right now, we're talking a lot about acceptance and inclusion. But if you are not inclusive of yourself, if you don't accept yourself as you are, if you don't love yourself just the way God created you, it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for you to love and accept others.
So true. So very true. I mean, I was in that place in my life many years ago, where I questioned my own self-worth. And now I just see so much light in people and so much good that it just perplexes me. I guess that's probably the best word to use, of how how people can be so critical of themselves because they're each unique and have these amazing gifts, you know?
Yeah, there's so much that plays into that. Like you're talking about, like how they were raised, their environment, their
Yeah.
childhood, there's so many factors that come to play into this. And I think the most beautiful examples I've seen are of people that come from really, really disruptive, disturbing backgrounds. And at one point they said, you know what? I'm just going to make the decision. I'm going to choose to acknowledge that this is my background. This is my past. This is no longer me. I choose to be a different person. And it's so I'm going to go on this journey to build myself up. But here's the thing. It is hard. And it's important for people to know it takes a lot of hard work to build yourself up, to develop ownership, to develop the discipline it takes to be a leader, to consciously discover or rediscover, like you said before, who you are and what your voice is and what your message is. It takes a lot of work, but I always think, what's the other option? Like, if you really stop and think about it, what's your other option? Live an unfulfilled, unpurposeful life? Live below your talents and the message that you can share with others? Skimp out on all the beautiful actions you can take and people you can serve and impact you can have in the world. Like, to me, that's not even an option. Yes, the work is hard. Yes, you will have to do things that stretch you so far out of your comfort zone. You probably want to crawl into a fetal position and cry sometimes, which I've done. It
totally happens, but what I think a lot of people don't realize is that staying stuck is more painful than the pain.
It absolutely is.
Growth.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I mean, I started on this journey to find the impact of my life. The first monumental step I took was when I was 16 years old, and I went to stay in a monastery for a week to do a silent retreat with monks and nuns to understand like our connection with God and what was required of us. And I was 16 years old. All my friends were out on spring break and I went to a monastery. So that in and of itself was pretty difficult to do. Yeah. But I remember some of the teachings were extremely hard for me. They were very, very hard because at one point I wondered if I was going to be able to carry the weight of my talent, if I was going to be able to live up to the potential that people said I had. And when I looked at all the work that I would have to accomplish, it was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary. But looking back, I always encourage people, like, there is no other option. Yes, it does take work, but it is so worth it.
What significance do you feel that someone's clarity of their mission and purpose have in regard to embodying that highest version of themselves as a leader?
It's 100% correlated. And it's 100% important because, and this is where learning who you are is so important, because once you're very clear on your mission, then all the actions you take are going to be aligned for you to realize that mission, right? It's kind of like the army. When the army has a goal, like they go on a mission, right? And everything they do, all the resources they put together is to accomplish that mission.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for everyday civilians, right? When you have a mission in mind and you're like, okay, this is my mission in life, then all the steps you're going to take, the hard ones, the easy ones, the ones that make you want to cry, the ones that push you forward, you do them because they are aligned with what you want to accomplish. And it makes it, quote unquote, easier. Because all of a sudden you have a purpose. You have a reason for doing things. And one of my favorite books is by Robin Sharma. It's called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And it's a phenomenal book. And in that book, he talks about not just finding your purpose, but living a purposeful life. And it was about not being in an erratic state of every single day, like, oh my God, what can I do? What can I do? It was just taking one step at a time, one step forward towards the goals that you wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I think that when you are on a path to become a conscious leader, when you are on a path to become your true authentic self and to take decisions out of integrity, it's not about waking up tomorrow morning and being, oh my God, I have to be 100% authentic and live out of integrity and know my voice and know my message. No, it's about, okay, what are the few steps that I can take today that's going to help me get a clear sense of my mission, that's going to help me understand my drive and my purpose and the meaning for this life that I'm living right now, that's going to get me a step closer to the vision that I have.
Being present.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think being present and also taking note of what brings joy into your life.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think not a lot of people pay attention to the joy that's in their life, like the little joyful moments. It doesn't have to be the equivalent of winning the Super Bowl, right? It can just be the little things that spark joy.
I just think, and I've been in this place too at one point, so many of us are programmed to believe that joy is this compartmentalized thing, right? That can only be brought out on special occasions or on the weekend when we're not at work or, but it really is part of the center of our being, and we should, seek to include it in every part of who we are and what we do.
Absolutely. I mean, to give you a perfect example, I made a vegan Alfredo sauce tonight for dinner. And as silly as it sounds, I was there on top of my stovetop and I was celebrating because it was a success. And I was celebrating and I was happy. And because I had all these emotions, I was in the moment.
Yeah.
And I was so joyful and I was so happy. And to me, that's a victory. That's a win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we connect ourselves to those moments that bring us joy, that's when we realize what our authentic voice is.
Yes, so true. That's so spot on. That could be a quote for you. You could take that and share that. What advice do you have? With the climate of our world, more than ever, there are more people feeling guided to forge a new path. Yeah. What would be your top piece of advice for those leaders to take action, to move forward in today's climate?
I think the first part for me is self-awareness. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important for people to pause and really acknowledge how they're feeling right now, how they're doing right now, because you can't move forward unless you know where you're starting from, right? So where are you at really right now? How are you feeling really right now? And what I love about self-awareness is that there's no right or wrong answer. It's not a quiz. It's just about taking accountability of how you feel. And then acknowledging, is this feeling serving me? If you're feeling overwhelmed, is it serving you to feel overwhelmed? What is making you feel overwhelmed? Is it really something that is happening, or is it your thoughts and the thought about what's happening that's making you feel overwhelmed? And then from there, you can say, okay, no, it's actually a thought that's making me feel overwhelmed. Okay, well, is the thought serving you? No, it isn't. Perfect. Move on. Move on from the thought. What's your next best move? What's the next thing you can do? And I think that a lot of people skip the self-awareness part. They just want to get moving. Like, okay, I want to figure out my mission and I want to figure out.
Because that's the basis for everything,
Yeah, exactly.
Like your mission.
It's exactly where it is, because once you know where you're standing, then you can know what's the first thing. And I think a lot of people take too many big bites at a time. I'm a huge believer in small steps, like small steps, small wins, consistency. Mm-hmm. I'm like the little turtle that won the race. It goes
back to that programming again, right? About most of us have been brought up in a society that promotes instant gratification. So when we decide we want something, it has to happen now. And that's where, and you said it, that's where we skip over, the most important part of what needs to happen.
Yeah.
when we decide we want to do something.
Yeah. And I find and for those that find self-awareness very difficult, I say, get an accountability partner, get somebody that you love and you trust and you feel comfortable around, and have them do the work with you. Like, where do you think I'm at right now? What can I improve on? And it has to come from a non-judgmental person, right? So don't go after the person that you know is going to be very harsh with you or critical or judgmental. You want this to be a very open and vulnerable conversation where the person is able to tell you, hey, listen, this is where I think you're at right now. And then you could gauge if you agree or not. And if you don't agree, you have to be open to acknowledging why you don't agree.
Yeah.
And then be able to move from there. And then be aware, what is the next step that I want to take? What is it that I want to build as a conscious leader? Do I want to be a better communicator? Do I want to develop my empathy? Do I want to develop my compassion? Do I want to develop my listening skills? Do I want to develop my accountability? Right? And then once you've done your self-assessment, the second step, because I'm all about taking action, right? Your second step is really about observing. Observe what you do in your day and how certain things make you feel. And recognize if that's a feeling you want to have more of, or if it's a feeling you want to have less of. Like one of the decisions I took in 2021 is I'm done hustling. I'm not done working hard. Don't get me wrong. I love to work hard.
But I'm done working hard.
Exactly. The whole culture of the hustling and the grind. And I'm like, nope, 2021, I'm over that. Yeah. I'm over that. I am an extremely hard worker. I love working. I love having an impact. So when I find myself in a situation where I'm back on that hustling wheel, then I observe and I'm like, is this serving me? That's where I take a step back. And that's what I encourage people to do. Take a step back. When you're in the middle of something, take a step back and, is this serving me? And if it's not serving you, okay, the next question is, okay, how do I move away from it?
Yeah.
How do I get myself back into alignment?
Spot on. I mean, periodic assessment is self-assessment is so necessary. So much goodness from today's conversation. So much. If someone wants to connect with you more, where's the best place for them to go?
So you can find me either on LinkedIn or on Instagram. You can also come on over on my website, eloisegagnon.com. Join our community. I send newsletters, tools, and strategies to really help leaders and business owners step up and become CEOs and that drive results and really have a powerful impact.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eloise. It was so just great to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's so great being here.
Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can live your purpose and make an impact as a conscious leader, visit me at jenniferspoor.com, and while you're there, be sure to join my email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.